Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashley Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Puget.
Today's episode is a special one as Ashley, John, and I meet with Lauren and Michael McAfee, authors of a new book, Beyond Our Control, Let Go of Unmet Expectations, Overcome Anxiety, and Discover Intimacy with God. John has a long history with this family, and the trust and close relationships built comes through in this episode.
It sure does, Gilbert. Lauren and Michael have sure walked the walk of both triumph and challenges, and they've written this book to share their story and hopefully help others on their journey. With close connections to Hobby Lobby, Museum of the Bible, and a number of other great organizations, current doctoral students Lauren and Michael are exceptional resources for helping readers and today's listeners to, as their book says, find a deeper peace in God than you could ever have imagined. Let's get started.
Well, Lauren and Michael, first off, thanks for being here. We're so excited you're here on the Townsend Institute podcast series, and just thank you for making the time today.
Oh man, such an honor.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
You have written a book that I think is, there's some books that that meet a need, and there's some books that meet a need well. And there's some books that don't meet any needs, and we don't want those.
Can you name some of those that come to mind?
Oh no.
But I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate what you did with the book, your new book called Beyond Our Control. And we're going to get into it and dig into it. But the need of a life, especially in this culture we're living in, where life is, where people are, where the church is, and there's so much anxiety about things that you read the news and it's like, well, that's beyond my control. What am I do about it? And you take it to a very personal level, you take it to a spiritual level, you take it to a relational level, and a very practical level. And I just want to thank you for the book. It has been a great, great help.
Thank you. That means a lot. We really appreciate that encouragement.
Yeah.
We're excited to hear more about the book. And as John mentioned, he, I know, has a warm heart for the work that you've put out. He got to be a part of it, writing the foreword for your book, which I know is awesome for all of us to read here today. Before we jump too much into the specifics, will you tell us a little bit just about yourselves and your vocations and what kind of brought you to this point of authorship?
Sure. Yeah. We both grew up together. We are Sunday school sweethearts, as we like to say. So grew up in the same church. And one of my greatest life accomplishment is escaping the friend zone with Lauren Green. That is, if there will never be, no matter what I'm able to blessed to stumble into in terms of accomplishments, that's the best one that I've had is
Congratulations, Michael.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking victory laps on that for the rest of my life. So
Wow.
we both, in our just kind of upbringing, always saw ourselves as communicators, especially related to the Bible. We were both engaged in our local churches. I was on staff. Lauren was always high capacity, like leader in church. And so we always saw ourselves as communicators. And so even today, that's a lot of our vocation. So I still am one of the teaching pastors at our church, the same church that we grew up at as well. My full-time role is helping to lead churches, schools, leaders on experiences that help deepen their faith, primarily in Washington, D.C., in and around Museum of the Bible. And so get to do that through an organization called Inspire. We exist to inspire people to read the inspired Word of God. And Lauren likewise communicates with her work.
Yeah. So I have had the fun opportunity to found an organization called Stand for Life, and we help to equip churches around human dignity issues. So to help provide theological, ethical foundations for the church. So we create resources, content, opportunities for gatherings to coach up pastors and leaders so that churches are well equipped to engage in our world and in our culture with theological depth and understanding about how can we engage in these human dignity issues, including the pro-life issue is kind of the main area of focus that my work has taken on. So it's a lot of fun. We get to do these different work projects and then also write together. And so this is our second book that we've written together. It's we have very different writing styles. So it's always funny to try and get back into writing together because we've each done various writing projects on our own. We're both PhD students studying ethics. And so, we'll get into our research and writing modes individually for school, but then writing a book together, it's like, oh, okay, we've got to kind of figure out how to bring our processes together and make it happen. So
Who wins all those discussions?
She's always right. That's a secret to marriage. I'm not even 15 years in. I figured that out.
Yeah, it's a team effort.
It seems like you have known Dr. Townsend for a while here. We'd love to hear a little bit more about how this happened, your friendship, your relationship here with him. How's that evolved over the years?
Yeah. So we got connected to Dr. Townsend through family connections, and Dr. Townsend has been a family coach for us, and we have been incredibly grateful to have the experience of having that ongoing relationship with John and just the ways that he's poured into us and has been a sounding board, has been an encouragement, has pushed us along and challenged us. And especially during the season that have been some of our hardest seasons in our life that we write about in the book, John was there for those. And so he knows well, which is why it was such a joy to have John write the foreword for the book, because he's meant so much to us through the journey that kind of has become what this book is now.
Yes.
And for him to speak into that and give the forward was just a huge blessing. So John, we're so grateful for that. But yeah, that's kind of how we know John and have gotten to be along in the journey of the past number of years with him in it with us. And we're super grateful for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything worthwhile in that book is likely plagiarized from Dr. John Townsend. So we figured we may as well see if he wants his name on the front as well and write the introduction. And that's so we jokes aside, exactly what Lauren said. Like John's friendship to us, counseling us, pastorally leading us through that season in so many ways. We're so grateful. I can't imagine what the last however many years would have looked like in our own lives without his wise guidance throughout that period of time for us.
Well, thank you guys. I just love working with people who are really intentional about growth. And you guys are intentional about all levels of growth, spiritual, emotional, business-wise, parenting. It's just fun to do that kind of work with you.
Oh, thanks.
Well, while we're on that topic, let's go ahead and jump into it. When we talk about some of the contents of your book, you mentioned that you set out to write about the book thinking it would be more about past tense experiences, even though so much of the heartache and struggles were still very active in your life during that book writing process. So how did that affect kind of your final product?
Yeah. So whenever we first came up with the idea for this book, it was after our daughter had gone through a cancer diagnosis. She was 1.5 at the time. We had just adopted her from China. We'd had her in our family for 1.5 months and then diagnosed with cancer. And
Unbelievable. Wow.
so went through surgery, chemotherapy, went into remission. And then we started thinking through, okay, we've learned a lot in processing the pain and fear of all of that we wanted to continue to process through our writing. And so we thought we'd be writing this book about what that was like for us to walk through a season of life that felt like the most important things were very outside of our control. And so we kind of came up with this idea of just the theme of control for the book, not knowing that then we were going to have all of these other things happening in our lives that just reiterated our need to continue learning about our own lack of control of our life and trusting in a God who has all control.
We started the writing process the first week in March 2020.
We're like, oh yeah, like, okay, we're going to start this. We feel like this is the direction for our next writing project and we're working on this. And then obviously people know COVID happened. And so like the whole world was dealing with that aspect of like, okay, there's a lot of things in our world and in our life that are outside of our control. So we had COVID, and then we had an adoption situation where we were adopting again domestically, and we had a son placed in our home. We brought him home from the hospital because we were chosen. And he was in our home for a year. And then through some very unusual circumstances, we were ended up having to be ordered to have him leave our home and go to a different family. So we had a son for a year that we then had to suddenly say goodbye to forever and have not had a chance to have any kind of relationship with since he left our home. And so we were then dealing with, again, that scenario that was completely beyond our control and brought so much pain and chaos into our lives. So we thought we were going to be writing it about one thing. And then the Lord just continued to say, like, no, like you are still learning this, and I am still teaching you, and I'm still growing you in this area. And so we just continued to try and listen and be attentive to what the Lord was doing in our lives through the hardships, through the pain points, and process that with each other and other healthy places, like with John, and then write about that and use that as a way to help myself process what we were going through, was writing about it and writing about and continuing to go back to the deep well of scripture and say, okay, what are the truths that I need to be believing in and I need to be reminding myself of so that I can walk in these? And then how would I want to also point others to those truths when they're in the seasons of hardship and grief and lack of control? I mean, we hoped that this book would be a service to others as we were processing through it ourselves.
Thanks so much for sharing this. And I can't imagine you're going through all this. One thing I'd love to hear you elaborate a little more on, you talked about how you talked with his birth mother, and then you really started to get an appreciation for what it's like with a single mom and how
Yeah.
what the situation she came from and then had him. And tell us some insights, some things you rethought as you went through that.
Yeah. Oh man, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I work kind of in and around the pro-life issue and have been in that space for years now, even before we had our son Ezra. And so for me to be working in the pro-life space and also then continuing to learn, I am always wanting to learn and grow to be more informed about how to serve women well who are facing unplanned pregnancies. And through the adoption process, we had an open relationship with Ezra's birth mom and just, man, really just fell in love with her and saw her as an extension of our family. And through hearing her story and just the realities that she faced as she had this unplanned pregnancy with Ezra, and just the strength and the courage that she had to keep that baby and to make a plan for him was so inspiring to me. I learned so much from her and also just gained a better perspective of the realities of some of the challenges that women face when they are, in her instance, she was going to be kind of single parenting, and she was herself an orphan, so she didn't have support of parents. And so that's a scary thing. And so as I lead my organization now, I'm keeping an eye towards what I have learned from his birth mom. Hey, there are women out there that are facing challenges. How can we serve them? How can we learn from them? How we can best be stepping in to care well for both that child in their womb, as well as that mother, that woman who's facing maybe a pregnancy that she doesn't know how she's going to make it work, and to really have that holistic perspective. And once she has that child, to care for her beyond having the child as well, and really wrap around them. So that's what my hope is for the church, is to wrap around women, children, and families well in a holistic way. And I learned so much and was able to have so much more empathy because of Ezra's birth mom that I wouldn't have otherwise. And so I'm so grateful for the way that the Lord used her in our lives in many ways.
I was thinking, like, of the reader. How does a person know if they need your book? It's not just for people who have had these kind of losses. It's when you come to that point in life when you're beating your head against the wall of something, money wise, relationally wise, family wise, emotionally wise, and you're trying harder and you're trying harder and you're trying smarter and you're trying smarter, and you go, it's not working. Either you're frustrated or despairing or whatever. That's what your book does. It addresses that point where I've done everything I can do and it's
Mhm.
bad and I'm sad, upset, scared. And then what do I do? That's why I think I love it that you put your context on there, but you have universal biblical principles that take us just beyond try harder.
We did try and use, like you said, the examples of ours may not be necessarily exactly what someone else has walked with adoption or infertility or cancer, but the themes and the lessons and the truths that we looked at from scripture can apply to any number of situations that people are walking that can bring about, anxiety from this lack of control or grief from the challenges that brings and the hardships that come. So we do hope that that comes across in terms of we share our stories, but there are so many things we're trying to point to that can apply across the board to anyone. Yeah.
We were definitely successful in that. I can tell you, as I was reading it, I really resonated with what you were saying. Again, even though we maybe haven't experienced all the same things, we've all experienced some level of grief or loss with whatever that topic might be. And many of us have also walked alongside others who are deep in the well of sorrow. I'd like to know, what recommendations do you have for those out there to best show up for our family members and friends who might be at a really low point in their lives right now? Are there specific things your family or church family did for you guys in that season to help you?
Yeah, I can think of a number of things. And starting with family and again, Dr. Townsend was critical in helping us and helping our family to know and process what does it look like to be there for us and for us to be there for each other. And I think creating that space, first of all, that if you are walking alongside of someone that has experienced, anything that's sort of beyond their control, if we were kind of alluding to, at the same time that we were adopting Zion and going through her cancer journey, I was starting an organization, and it was a travel-based organization. It is a travel-based organization. It has survived, but we launched in February of 2020, and so I was experiencing all of these things not only on a personal level but a professional level of how like what do you do when your whole organization is based on the travel industry and a global pandemic hits, and so whatever the kind of moment is that you or a loved one is processing, like having that space of creating the opportunity to process with others that know that they are going to be. I love that language that Dr. Townsend used of being in the well with you, of being there and not trying to necessarily always fix everything, but just allowing you to have space to grieve and to lament and to process what is happening to you. I think that that was incredibly helpful for us. I mean, I remember specifically we're talking to you from our living room, and a week or sometime shortly after we lost Ezra, we had to say goodbye to our son, and we talk about in the book, and we reference his birth mother. We're only one perspective of the adoption triad, and so it's a complex thing, and we want to create space for that. But for us, having that space to grieve this son that we had, envisioned and had hopes and dreams for, with family and friends that just came over and would eat a meal with us and be willing to ask questions and be willing to say his name. And that can be hard, even not knowing, does that bring up kind of sharp pain? But it also for us just legitimized how important he was to us and that others remember him. And so even today, having people that regularly kind of ask us about Ezra still means something to us. We lost Ezra shortly, 12 days after his first birthday, and so we have since been blessed to bring home our second daughter through adoption, and she had her first birthday just last weekend. So we're nearing that point where we've had more days with her than with Ezra, and had a family member acknowledge that to me recently and ask how I was doing with that. And even just in that, providing that space years later is meaningful because it still is emotional. We move forward, but we don't move past it. We don't move beyond it. And so I think that's one way that it's been really
Yeah,
for me.
I think just to summarize that is just the presence, like the presence of people in your life that'll show up and listen really well, ask questions, and be empathetic and feel that those emotions with you is really valuable. And then, I mean, for our church, there was also so many practical ways. I mean, we had meals provided for us for when we brought our daughter Zion home from China, they had a meal train for us. And then a month and a half later, when she was diagnosed with cancer, they had another meal train for us and they brought meals to us. And then whenever we had Ezra, and then whenever we lost Ezra, people were bringing us meals. It felt like all the time in just this season where all of these really life-changing events happened for us. And that was just one of the ways that, people were stepping in and saying, hey, how can we help? How can we care for you guys in this season? So presence, and then just any way that like tangibly people can be there for those that are walking maybe those pain points in life. And for people that are wanting to show up well, I think also asking how can I serve you best? Because I think not everyone's going to have an answer. And I think in those seasons, I wasn't always able to answer that whenever people were asking me, but it really meant something to me that my friends cared enough that they were wanting to know, like they wanted to serve me well. And they were asking me like, hey, what do you need? How can I serve you? How can I care for you well? And sometimes I had things that I needed. And sometimes I just said, I don't know. Like, I don't even know. And even whenever I was saying I didn't know, they said, okay. And then they just continued to do what they could, whether showing up or bringing a meal or, checking in on anniversaries, so that they were showing they cared well for us. So all of those can be really meaningful for people that are in those really pain points.
And I love Dr. Townsend would often with our family provide a menu, right? And like say like, what do you need right now? Is it this? Is it this? And like give kind of a few options. And so, and last thing I would just add, this isn't for necessarily someone else, but if there is someone that's going through that point, I know for us, continuing to lean into church, continuing to lean into that community, even when we didn't feel it, even when we didn't feel like it. And you stand there and worship and you can't even summon the voice to sing the songs or whatever. But that discipline of going, of showing up was so, in hindsight, so much more meaningful than it felt that day.
Yeah, I thought that the way you navigated all this was such a great model, and it's portrayed in your book, because especially as Christians, we kind of feel like we got to make sure God looks good all the time, meaning we got to be happy all the time. And so we get kind of codependent on him. Like, I don't want you to look bad now, so I'll pretend like I'm okay, because then they won't think poorly of you. And God really doesn't need that. His self-image is really in place. And so when we do the whole, no, I'm fine because God is good. I go, well, God is good, but you're not fine. I mean, and when we it's a cutting off of people. People go, oh yeah, it's been tough with my business and the thing about my kid. But anyway, how are you doing? Because God's good. It's sort of like if God runs the whole world by grace and truth, it basically cuts that off. It's saying I don't need grace or truth, and I'm fine. And then the very vehicle that God built, which was the church and the body, like you said, Michael, it can't function. 1 Peter 4:10 says that we are the stewards of God's manifold grace. We're the delivery system, the gas tank for grace from God from each other. And we go, I'm not going to be vulnerable. I just tell you everything's happy. All of a sudden, we're even more alone. So I love how you kept talking about church and community, even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah, I remember one Sunday going to church right after a loss, and it was just super fresh. I mean, it was days after. And I didn't want to be there, but I knew from experience, okay, this is good for my soul. Like I need to be here. I need to be around these people, and I need to be hearing from the Lord's truth poured into me, even when I don't feel like it. Showed up, and I sat in the very back, like the back of the back, not even the back row, but there's like some chairs even further back against the back wall. Like I sat there in the back corner, like far corner of the sanctuary, and was just like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I can't, I'm just here. And that's all I've got to offer. Sat through worship. I didn't even stand to sing. And I remember one of the staff members coming over and just sitting next to me. Like she saw that I was sitting back in the corner by myself, and she just came and sat next to me. She didn't even say anything. She just had like her hand on my shoulder for half of worship and just sat there next to me. It was so meaningful because it was such a visualization of I had nothing to offer, and she didn't even have literally didn't speak any words to me, but I was there, and the Lord used her to remind me he's here too, through that physical presence of that staff member. So yeah, I mean, whenever we do choose to show up the Lord can use that in really powerful ways, even when it's hard and you don't feel like it.
It reminds me of that passage in Job where it says when he lost everything, it says they sat with him 7 days and 7 nights and did not speak a word to him, for they knew his grief was very great. And people go, well, nothing happened. No, a lot happened.
Yeah,
And a lot
yeah,
happened with you, Lauren, in
absolutely.
that back pew.
Yeah, that's right.
In your book, you go really deep, into emotions around really hard topics, infertility, adoption, all these other things. And I like how you name them with all these chapters. But as we think about, how do you communicate some of this for, younger kids, difficult things? I know you were pretty intentional with Zion when Ezra was going to leave, what are how have you done this with your own daughter and moving forward here?
Yeah, it's one thing to walk through those things as an adult and as a parent, but to have to watch your kids go through it too is like another layer of heartbreak. And so certainly for us watching Zion go through all that she did with both her cancer journey as well as then losing her brother,
Mhm.
was really hard. And so we were trying to do the best that we could to be the support and a safe place for her and to help her know how to process her emotions, right? Her little emotions
Mhm.
as a 3-year-old at the time, whenever she, had to say goodbye to her brother forever. Um, and so we've always been really intentional to try and have a lot of just truthful conversations about reality at an age appropriate level. And I too have seen that, like, as Zion gets older, she's a couple years older now. And so continuing to revisit conversations on anniversaries of loss or on Ezra's birthday when she knows, like, oh, this would have been Ezra's, third birthday. She's reprocessing these things at different level developmentally because she's older. And so again, it's having honest and truthful information that we're able to share with her that is age appropriate, and then creating the space for her to see that her emotions are safe with us. Like, she can come to us with whatever it is that she's feeling, and to help give language to that. So we have in our playroom, we have a little poster board thing framed that has, a bunch of different faces to show, like, one is surprised, one's happy, one is sad, one's angry, all these different emotions to help for her. John has provided that for us. Like, we've seen lists of, like, here's a list of just emotions. Like, if you need to read through them and then tell me, have like the tools to tell me which one is it that you're feeling. We've like tried to recreate that for our kids in the visualization, right? Of, okay, here's a poster of different faces that shows, how you might feel. And so there have been times that I've, pointed to that and been like, oh, when we were talking about a memory with Ezra and asking her, like, how did that make you feel? And she can kind of point to what it is. So it's creating those environments that she knows that it's safe to talk about. And we talk about Ezra often. So, like, she knows when his birthday is. We have a picture of him up in our kitchen. Like, she knows it's okay to talk about him because he was a part of our life. He was a part of her life. And trying to hide that isn't going to make the pain go away. Like, it's there. And so we'll acknowledge the pain by acknowledging him and his impact in our lives.
I really appreciate that. As a parent of young children, 2 daughters, also, by the way, I like that. I like that idea of acknowledging it. So many times, I think as parents or guardians, caregivers, we try to protect or hide some of those difficult things from our young children, but really that's just doing them a disservice, right? If you can do it in the safety of your relationship with age appropriateness, that really is the way to go. So thank you for that tips of information. Another question we had for you is one of your quotes in the book that I know Gilbert and John and I really took a hold to was, "It is through brokenness that intimacy with God is built." Would you mind elaborating on that a bit more?
Yeah. James 1 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials, challenges, difficult circumstances of various kinds, for the testing of your faith develops perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work so that you might become mature and complete, lacking in nothing. What happens to our faith whenever it is challenged is it is strengthened, it's fortified, it's gone through the fire. And so, in the same way that we all know this instinctively through our human relationships, that it's those people that have walked alongside of us or with us that we've had even conflict directly with and have then worked through it, that then when you have true resolution and true restoration of a relationship, that it can help make that relationship stronger. Like in a marriage, when you work through, I think it was in premarital counseling when we were younger, of a conflict plus resolution equals intimacy. It's this idea of working through those things, that for us in a similar way, that for us in our relationship with God, that it is through brokenness that bridge to intimacy is made. And not only through our brokenness, ultimately we see that in the brokenness of Christ's body and on the cross, that ultimately that was not that is not only our example, but that is the power that gets us a relationship with God, a relationship with Christ. And so we don't know all the reasons, and trying to we don't try in the book, or I don't think anyone should try to make all the reasons of why God would do something. We know great redemptive stories. We know that ultimately, that in the end, all things are made right. All the sad things become untrue. And, we have this kind of glorious ending that we're heading towards one day, but we're not there yet, and like John kind of alluded to, that we're in the midst of this wilderness, a spirit empowered wilderness, and a wilderness post-resurrection, albeit that we are awaiting the day when God makes all things new, when he wipes every tear from our eye. And so in that meantime, in the world that we live, in the brokenness that we live in, that Romans 8:28, that God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, that is not only true, that is all the more true when you're going through some type of challenging circumstance, some type of heartbreaking circumstance. And so the purpose that God has for us, that if our life, if we look at these circumstances, one of the main takeaways I hope people take from the book is that if we look at our circumstances and say, God, that verse applies to mean God is going to use the hard circumstances I have now to improve my life immediately with the same thing that I'm seeking, I think we're going to be disappointed. I think God doesn't promise that. It may happen, but it's not, oh, well, you're going to lose your son, Ezra, but God's going to give you a daughter later that you're going to love even more, and it's going to be an even better, a child for you. That's not what that means. What it means is that God is going to use this difficult circumstances of the broken world, this brokenness that you're feeling, to give you more of himself, to give you a deeper intimacy with him. And that is not only a better life now, even if it means a harder life now, but it's a better life that sets you up for the life to come. That it's ultimately what we're heading to. That sort of you change the scoreboard from God is using difficult circumstances to improve my earthly situation to God is using difficult circumstances to draw me closer to himself. And the joy that comes in that, even amidst the sorrow, is better and is the life that I was meant to live, even if it doesn't include this piece of whatever it is that is beyond your control that you were pursuing in the first place. That God is in his love and mercy taking something from you that you thought was going to find some form of fulfillment that ultimately is only found in him.
Yeah, that is so helpful, Michael. You guys have a great chapter on anxiety, because just from the clinical level, when you have something you can't control, anxiety is very, very often the result. And then anxiety goes to other bad things, and it goes to depression, and it goes to relational problems, that sort of thing. And can you just speak to some of the benefits the reader might get who's going, I'm in a out of control situation and I'm so scared I can't sleep at night? I think you have a lot of help for folks like that.
Yeah. Well, I love that you quote or said that, because I quote that in the book, right? This correlation between anxiety and control. And then also once you're in that anxiety space, like, right, it leads to other things. That was such a helpful, insightful statement that you made for me years ago now. And I hope that if readers pick up this book and make their way through it, that they would be seen for the very real challenges that come from loss of control and pain, and be validated in that. I think we tried to have a lot of empathy from our own experience of just validating, yeah, it is hard. There's no way around that. Like, it is hard. but that they would also be challenged and encouraged towards seeing how to find more of God through the challenge they're facing, through the season of losing control. So I'll often say, to kind of try and just summarize the book, of like, we had to learn how to let go of the grasp of control that we were trying to hold to, and simultaneously learn then to trust the God who had all control. And so if God did have control over all things, even though that meant he was allowing these painful circumstances to happen, that causes us to wrestle through, what do we think about God and his character, and how do we learn to trust him with these painful circumstances that are in his control. So I hope that people will be seen and then find more of God and be pushed closer to the Lord through the book. And if they pick it up and read through it, that's hopefully what they'll gain.
So you and Michael have given us so many just things to think about today, but we like to end all our episodes with the takeaway tip. What is one thing you want our listeners to take away from our time together?
I would hope listeners could walk away knowing that in any form of loss, whatever the loss was, loss of control, loss of a person, loss of, whatever it is, it's been a loss. In our losses, that can make way for more of Christ. It can make way for us to gain more of him if we turn to him in that. And so loss, while it is hard and may be something we all want to avoid, there can be the beauty of gaining more of Christ in that, right? Because we can connect with our loving Heavenly Father, who himself knows what it is to have loss. God gave up his own son for our sake. Like, wow, like that is, having lost my son made me just really recognize the impact of that depth of a love, that God himself gave up his son for our sake. And he is a God who knows loss and can be there as a comfort, knowing what that is like. So as we process, each of us navigates, our own losses in life, that we have a God who can draw near to us, and as we draw near to him in the midst of that.
Yeah. It'd be really similar, the same thing, that whatever you're going through right now, that you're not alone. There are others who are walking alongside. And that's one of the things that came out of writing this as we were losing Ezra, and as we were, going through some of those things, as we don't write our book, and we still today are praying the Lord would give us kids biologically, and some of these things that often you kind of only hear the kind of story at the other side of people who have gone through that. We're in the midst of it right now, praying and trusting the Lord with it. Whatever you're going through right now, that it's okay to be right where you are, and it's okay to look back like the people of Israel did and look and say, God, I don't know what you're doing today, but I know what you've done. I know that you have taken your people, you've delivered them from unbelievable circumstances in the past. I know that you ultimately gave Christ on our behalf. And so even though I don't understand why you would be doing everything you're doing in my life, why you would either be whatever your theology is, whether he is sovereignly ordaining or he is just allowing Satan to run amok, that whatever the kind of process is, that Lord, you are the one that's in control. And so I surrender the control I never really had in the first place, and don't even being okay with where you are today, whatever that is, and making space for others to help you be able to process that and ultimately point you to Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, because he's the one, he's ultimately the reason why you're going through whatever you're going through, is that you might have more of him.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Michael and Lauren. I know our listeners, we here, as well as our listeners, are going to gain so much from your insight today, as well as from your book. So we want to remind everyone it's out and available, Beyond Our Control, Let Go of Unmet Expectations, Overcome Anxiety, and Discover Intimacy with God. In addition to this book, can you let our listeners know where else they can find you and connect with you?
Yeah, I love hearing from people. So you find me on Instagram and Twitter at Lauren A. McAfee. And my website is laurenamcafee.com as well.
Yeah, likewise. I've it's been an honor and an unexpected joy and privilege to pray for people that would reach out. So I'm at Michael McAfee, same thing. And yeah, we'd love to pray and hear your story. So
Yeah. Thanks again for having us. It was so fun to be with you guys. And John, great to see you again, friend.
Yeah, and I'm just reminded of how much Michael is right, that he did avoid the friendship zone and everything went well.
I love it.
Oh, it's quite an accomplishment.
Lucky.
Oh, yeah. So
Better be lucky than good.
there you go.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, Michael and Lauren, for being part of this and being on Tips. We really appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
If you enjoy the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.